April is Financial Literacy Month, and what better way to kick off the month than by putting all of the focus on your finances? Whether you're dipping your toes in the money management waters, you're seasoned at making and spending money, or you're ready to tackle your financial situation head on, there's no better time than right now. And to help, I'm bringing Kara, also known as Aunt Kara, on the show today to talk about how to keep the focus on your finances, especially when the temptation to spend seems too high. Get ready to be inspired and encouraged to make better money decisions from here on out. Hey there, I'm Rhea Reeves, and over a decade ago, I turned my life around through budgeting. I went from being an overspender deep in credit card debt to being the founder and full-time money coach of City Girl Savings. Now, I help women work towards their dream life and tap into their financial power one budget at a time. I fully believe you can live a life you love with a budget, and I'm living proof. The weekly City Girl Savings podcast focuses on the intersection of money and the City Girl lifestyle. Join me every week along with some special guests as I share my experiences, advice, and guidance on navigating life and money as an experience-loving millennial. Now, you may know her as Aunt Kara on Instagram, and she loves talking all things personal finance, including travel hacking. Kara lives in the Midwest, is a wife and mom of two. She is in her 30th year of a career in corporate IT and plans to leave work well before retirement age. Kara loves to travel and has saved over $120,000 over the last 12 years by earning and redeeming travel program loyalty points. I can't wait to talk about that. And Kara is a firm believer in living below her means, focusing on long-term goals and having fun along the way. My kind of girl. Hi, Kara. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know I shared just a little bit about you already, but can you fill in the gaps for us about yourself and what drove you to start the Aunt Kara brand?
Yes. Well, first of all, Rhea, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk with you today. Yeah. So everything you said, spot on. And really, with my experience, I'm getting up there in age and have lots of stories to tell and experiences to share. Over 5 years ago, I started this Instagram account called Aunt Kara. And the reason why that's what it's called is because I have 7 nieces and nephews. They're my sister's kids that are now all in their 20s or 30s. And they, over the years, I've been super close to them. They have always come to me for different type of advice along the way, especially as they were becoming young adults and would ask for my insight. I'd tell them stories of things I was going through and just give them my 2 cents. And we still continue to text a lot these days. I mean, I see them several times a year too, but I had asked them years ago, if I start an Instagram account, will you guys all follow me and I'll share different stories about money, because you're in this phase of life of starting out and trying to figure out and navigate this whole new world of being an adult. And you're going to want to understand more about the do's and don'ts. And is this a good decision financially? Like, what am I getting myself into? And I want to be out there sharing stories and messages and words of wisdom with you. And they're like, heck yeah, of course we would. They're all on Instagram. And so I said, okay, I'm going to start this account and maybe there'll be other people like you all. And I said, share it with your friends that are similar age and maybe they'll learn some things too. And I'm just going to push it out there. And I said, you can take what you want and ignore what you want. And that's kind of the launching of my account and why I did it. And then obviously over the years, it's grown quite a bit. There have been other people that were interested in my stories. My followers, the majority are definitely younger than me. And also a lot of my followers, the majority of my followers are female as well. And that was a really exciting thing for me to be able to reach out to women and teach them these lessons that I've learned along the way and I think could be helpful by different topics to think through and scenarios to run by people to just really create awareness and education. So that's been my motivation all along. And of course, as any Instagram account grows, it really gets you motivated to do better, right? To do better, grow bigger. And you're like, hey, there's interest in this topic. What I have to say has value. And so then you want to build your account and push more messages out there that you know can be helpful. And when you get that feedback too, as you may know, Rhea, when you get these DMs that tell you stories about what they did because of the information you shared and they're thanking you, it's like the most rewarding feeling I've ever had in my entire life. Like it lights me up inside. And so I totally am passionate about this at this point, doing it for so long. I mean, it's like this is a big piece of my purpose. So that's really the deeper side of the things you covered again are all my interests and my career and the things I've done. But like what drives me and makes me excited about sharing this information, that's the story behind it.
I love that. And I've been following you for a while. And even just seeing you here, like you have such a warm, welcoming energy. And I totally take to you. And I can see why so many of your followers take to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I love that you were like the cool aunt that everyone would go to and ask questions and get probably real
I
answers.
think
That's
they'd say my husband's the cool one, but
awesome.
they did respect me quite a bit that they'd ask me. But if you were to say which is cooler, they'd probably say my husband Mark was the cool uncle because he's like fun.
Oh, got it. Got it. Yeah.
The serious I know I'm fun, I guess, but he's the fun one. I always say he's the favorite in the family, even my own family. He's the favorite.
Oh, I can't wait to talk a little bit about Mark. But one thing that I had read about you is that you attribute your debt free wealth building lifestyle to your money mindset. And I'm curious, have you always had like this type of mindset where you're focused on doing the things that you need to do to be debt free and build wealth? And if not, what changes or experiences did you go through that helped to shape the money mindset you have now?
I will tell you, it's been pretty consistent since I was young that
Oh,
money has been a big deal to me. And my husband and I have talked about it quite a bit because he is very similar to me in so many ways, which has been wonderful for our marriage and our finances. But I was always very interested in money when I was young and I would work and save. And I loved the feeling of having my own money and having control over it. And of course, you reflect because this isn't the first time I've been asked that question, but I think there's a lot to me that wants to be very self sufficient. That's even in the career I chose. I chose IT as a career. So I'm in information technology. And the number one reason, and I openly admit it, is because I knew it was a high paying industry. I
mm,
knew that my opportunities were endless. I had good advice in college. The one thing I did know is I wanted to do business. I wanted to be in business. Business interests me. But specifically within that, think about this in the early 90s is when I got my college degree and technology, internet was not even in existence. Okay. That totally dating myself. But technology was getting ready to explode and the universities knew that. And I got great advice. And I said, if that's where the money is, that's where I'm going. Because if I'm going to work every day, I'm going to make a lot of money at it. And as long as I believed in what I was doing and knew what was contributing to this business and maybe even to the world, depending on what industry I was in, it was like that was even my reason for picking my career. So I've been very money driven. And that doesn't mean it's all about making that money, which I've kind of been focusing on. It's about making good decisions with what I have and making sure that I knew my boundaries, whether I was 18 years old with my money or I was 30 or I'm now 52, that I understood what that enabled and not overextending myself like, nope, I'm not there yet. Like that's not within my realm. I'm not going to pretend it is and have any kind of stress of me trying to pretend I'm something that I'm not or whatever financially. So I just think I've been very aware and thoughtful for a lot of years and really tried to stay independent in a way that I could control my destiny and control what I was doing. And I wasn't taking out loans from other people, borrowing, taking money. I didn't inherit any money. My parents didn't gift us a bunch of money when I got married. And we started off with, it was like my paycheck and my husband's paycheck or what we lived on. And those were our boundaries. We didn't overextend ourselves. We knew what we could and couldn't do. But it was so rewarding to know we were doing it on our own. We were dependent on no one, that we could survive and function and be happy and do that with the money that we had at the time. Again, we weren't living large when we were 23 years old. I mean, I've been married for almost 30 years too. So we knew where we were all the time along the way. And obviously, we're in a different place now than we were back then. But it's back to your question of like, has it always been this way or was there some event? It's really always been this way. And I did have good role models with my parents. Mark did too. Our parents did not have any debt. They both paid off their houses early. My parents' house was paid off when I was in middle school. I remember my mom telling me about that. I mean, I was the youngest of three. They'd been there quite a while, but I thought, okay, we didn't see financial stress in our house. And my dad was a college professor. We weren't living large. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. We had money to get what we needed, but we weren't living large. Like I said, we were not wealthy by any means, but those examples were good for me. Mark's parents, similar. Budgeting, coupons, saving money. No, you can't wear these brands. We're not paying that. Yes, this is what you have to do. Suck it up, save ahead. Whatever all those messages were, I just said, okay, this must be the way to do it. And then we were lucky again, we were on the same page with that because we just followed that lead along the way. And that was a good start for us that we recognized that early.
I feel like you said so many good things there. A few things that stuck out to me is knowing that you had limitations so early on or at such a young age. I mean, if I had known that at 18, I think my life would be a little bit different. And I think that's the case for most people. But another thing that you said that really stuck out to me was that when your parents paid their house off, they told you. So it sounds like you had money conversations or there was an awareness about money growing up. And I think that's really important too. A lot of people either didn't get that or the conversations around money were not positive ones. And so that like stays with you moving into adulthood.
Yeah. I can remember when my mom told me about the house being paid off, but then I also remember some conversations that my dad explained to me because they actually showed me his paycheck. And back in those days too, I don't even think things were electronically deposited, that I could see his check stub. And he would explain to me how he was saving for retirement. And although he was a professor with a state school, he was going to get pension and things, but he was putting away money in this other account too for his retirement. And like, just like we always say, like kids don't learn that at school. I didn't learn about that at school, but I remember him telling me, yeah, you put away money for retirement, plus I'm going to get this pension. And this is the rest of the money. There's taxes and all that. And this is the rest of the money we have to live on. And then my mom was in control of like budgeting and how much money we could spend on what. So they did have some. I mean, we didn't have extensive, deep conversations or anything, but like I got the basics. And at that point, that's all I really needed.
Absolutely.
But it did stick with me for sure.
And now I'm curious because I think anyone who's listening to this, whether they learn that from their parents or not, they have the opportunity to change the narrative for their kids moving forward. So I'm curious, like when your kids were growing up, I know they're a bit older now. Did you have money conversations with them?
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah.
Good.
Acceptive conversations. I mean, and again, because it's been such a focus of my life and I've seen all the good things that have come from the decisions that we've made, like it makes me go, oh my gosh, I want to make sure my kids do what we're doing. And they understand why they don't come home to a house that's stressed over money or fighting over money. We don't talk about money ever in a bad way. Like they know it's a tool. We have enough to do what we need to do. And that's the important part. And then when they got older, I talked more about investing and I could explain more about why. I have a post about this, like why we didn't upgrade our house, right? Like many other things, I'm a very consistent person. We've been in our house for 26 years.
Wow.
And so, same house. And when they were little, they would ask about, we're very far from their school. Well, now my daughter's a senior in high school and my son's in college, but we have to drive quite a ways out to the middle school and the high school. And it's a pain. I mean, it's horrible. It's inconvenient. And they would say, why can't we live where the newer growth is in our school system and where all their friends are? And it takes so long to get to everybody's house. And I said, because I'm not doing this. Like we got our house paid off because all that money will pay for your college because I put our house payments now in a 529 plan for you. Now I could explain that stuff when they got a little bit older.
Right.
And then as soon as they got in like the last couple years of their high school and understood more about how many people get student loans, how many people can't go to college or are going to a different type of school because they don't want to take out student loans. They're like, oh, I get it now. And it wasn't like a big battle with them, but like there are some concepts when you're young, they don't click. But, we've always talked about boundaries and saying, that's not what we have money to spend on this month. We never said like, we don't have the money. It's more of like, that's not where we're choosing to put our money right now. These are where we're spending our money. And we openly talked about those things. And I think they got it. And again, like I said, when kids get a little older and they have more exposure to other people's lives, like the behind the scenes of other people's lives, when they're little, they just see everything on the surface, the superficial stuff, right? But when things go deeper and they understand more about dynamics and see their friends' parents or hear these stories from their friends, then they get it.
Yeah.
So we openly talked about money all along, but luckily for them, it's never been in a bad way where it's made them fearful or scared or thinking, ugh, I don't want to have to deal with money. It sounds stressful and bad. So in the same way that my parents told me about when the house got paid off and that I put away money for retirement, I've said all those things to my kids myself. I mean, we'd tell them when we got things paid off, when we got a car paid off, what that means. That means we have this much more money every single month to put away for our future. And you just keep saying it and it sinks in.
Definitely. And I love that you say things in a way that isn't negative. It's not that, oh, we don't have the money to spend. It's we're choosing to put this money over here, put it over there. It's never a, you can't have this, you're deprived of this. It's this is what we're choosing to do. And I think that can make such a shift in a young person's life. That's great.
Well, I know because they've got enough things to worry about. When they were really little, I'd have to talk about like, when I say we don't have the money, I don't mean we don't have money. I'm not saying we're poor, we're struggling, we're going to be lucky to put food on the table. We may not be in this house for long. But kids, sometimes they just hear a message and you do sometimes have to call it out. Even if you think you're saying it the right way, you need to like say the definition of this means this isn't where we're choosing, like you said, because that can be fearful for kids too. And you don't want your kids to like not ask you for something they need because they think, oh, last time I talked to mom about money, we didn't have any. No, that wasn't the message. I said, I'm not going to go buy you whatever you're asking for when you already have one and you don't need it. And it's just like a waste of money. Now you're asking for this. That's a necessity. That's something we do put our money towards. Like it's a process. It's not like you have one conversation and they figure it out. Like I said,
Right.
and then honestly, with age, everything starts sinking in more and more. So repeating the message, really.
One thing that you had mentioned a little bit earlier is that you and your husband, Mark, have always kind of been on the same page and had similar goals and long-term aspirations. So I'm curious, like, is there something that has helped you both along the way as you stay focused towards working on your long-term goals? And also, do you have any advice for like younger couples or those like me? I've found my partner and we do set goals that we want to achieve together, but sometimes people just kind of stray a little bit. So I'd love to hear any advice you have and what that was like for you and Mark early on in your relationship.
It's talking a lot about your vision, right? Of what you want the next phase of your life to be. And it's not just financially. It's not just, hey, you and I should set the goal of saving $5,000 this year. There has to be purpose behind it. And when you weave it into your life goals, like why do we want this money? Why does it matter? What are we working towards? Mark and I are very goal oriented. We like challenges. We're like that. But you do need to take them in chunks. And as much as you could be 25 years old and saying, I want to retire early, okay, let's be realistic. That isn't going to happen unless there's all kinds of unique circumstances. But just in general, it's not going to happen in the next 5 years if you're 25. So that's nice and aspirational. Not saying it's unrealistic to want to retire early. I mean, I'm hoping to do that myself, but things that are closer in the time frame, things that are more milestones along the way. What do you really need in the next, I'm just saying 5 years, you can make it whatever you want with your circumstances, but what's something that it's not too far away that you're going to be able to feel that satisfaction of reaching something soon and not feel like this is a lifetime away and the motivation. And so Mark and I have always talked about future. Like we're very much, what are we going to do? We have visions and we say, why not? Like, why not try to do this? Why not try to have this paid off? Like with our house, there was no reason we had to have our house paid off. It's been 11 years now that we paid it off. And it was just something that like I almost just came up with because I go, that would be good. And just think we'd be about this age and we'd be at the point where then we could turn around and put that money towards college because I knew we both said, look, we want to pay for our kids' college. So that'll be a big deal to us. And they'll be around this age. And we had fun coming up with goals. And again, like at the time we were coming up with that, we'd been paying on our house for a while. I mean, it took us 14 years to pay it off. So it's not like we didn't like pay it off in 5 years, but it was just something earlier than like that whole, I'm going to retire early or I'm going to have enough money for my kids to pay for their college. Like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing we want to do and why? And so the whole purpose thing, the vision, and it's just fun to have somebody on your side where you're doing things as a team. Everybody knows it's hard to work on things by yourself sometimes. I mean, I think if you've got the right partner, it's more motivating because you have accountability and you guys can be each other's conscience when, like you said, you might want to stray and go, oh, maybe we should. I mean, you don't know how many times we have gone and looked at other houses. Okay. Where we said, I go, I can't do this anymore. We have to have a basement. This is getting crazy. We need a third car garage. Where is our car going to go when my son starts to drive? You know, like you get in these things where like, we can do this. We can afford it. Let's go. And then it's just funny to have someone to bounce off and who really cares. And you talk about it and you go, okay, let's just put on the brakes for a minute. What does this mean if we make this financial decision? What impact does it have to what we knew we wanted to do? And it could be, well, I'm going to have to work 10 more years then because now I'm going to have more debt that I'm going to have to get paid off before this time frame. Or, well, what are we going to do? We're going to have to be like paying college as they go versus having that money saved up front. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like you have someone to come back down to reality with.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. So working as a team sometimes, again, if you are on completely different pages, I mean, that's a lot harder thing to solve. And there might be some other bigger underlying things happening too beyond finances. But like having this vision of like, what do we want to do in 5 years from now, in 10 years? What are we going to do in our 30s? What are we going to do in our 40s? What do we want our 50s to look like? And again, we're doing that right now, even with me being 52, thinking I'm going to retire in my mid 50s. I am not far at all. Well, what am I going to do in those times? Like, not just what am I going to do financially? And then what are we going to be doing with our time? Like, why am I doing this? Why does this matter to me? And are he and I on the same page with that? And then that keeps you motivated. And then again, if I make a different decision right now financially and like do something crazy with my money, does that throw off our entire plan or what's the impact? So it's just all this big thinking, but not going too far ahead where it's like you put out those goals that are like way far out. It's hard to stay motivated. So do stuff in bite sizes. I hope that was helpful.
It was. Yeah. For someone like me, maybe the goals that we would set are a little bit smaller than something that a couple who's been together for 25 years would have. But the point still stays the same, right? Like set goals that aren't too far out in the future that you can work towards together. And when you achieve them, you feel that excitement and you have this partner that can, like you said, bounce ideas off of or just tether you back to reality if you need it and vice versa. So it's very helpful.
They can be right in those early years, as simple as just like, I don't want to have a car payment. I want to have an extra, I'm just going to say $500. I want an extra $500 every month to do whatever I want. Maybe it's not even for something practical. And you're just saying, we need a bigger buffer.
Right.
And like our leftover money for in case something happens or some event, something beyond, obviously, I believe in emergency funds, but like, I just want a bigger cushion.
Yeah.
I want to live even further beneath my means. And to do that, I need to pay off this car. I mean, those were our early ones. I mean, we rented for a while before we had our house and all that stuff. And I was always just so ready to always like pay off the next car.
What's next?
Yes. Let's just get rid of all this stuff.
I love that. Are you loving this episode so far? Well, the money and life level up conversations never end in the City Girl Savings community. Visit citygirlsavings.com for instant access to resources that help you budget, level up your money mindset, and so much more. And make sure you stay up to date with CGS by following us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at City Girl Savings. Well, I feel like a lot of the stuff we've talked about so far has been super inspiring, but I know there's probably someone listening to this episode who just feels like they don't have the motivation and they can't get out of their financial situation and things feel very heavy right now. So I would love to hear in your own words and opinion, what is the first step you would tell someone like that to take to turn things around?
Well, you have to lay out all the facts. I mean, I know people in that situation. And as much as it's painful to confront, it's not fun. You're not motivated to do it because it might be really bad news and you're going to have some things in front of your face you don't want to see. But you have to have some sort of motivation or willingness to put in the effort to make a change, or else you are going to be living this way for a long time. And honestly, laying out the facts of your situation. And I see people complaining, but then wanting to avoid confronting their situation. And I'm like, hate to say, numbers don't lie, right?
Yes.
So laying out your financial situation, whether it's putting out your debt, documenting what your true debt is, documenting what your monthly expenses are, documenting what your true income is, and starting to do a little bit of math and saying, what are my circumstances? And is there something new I will realize, right? I mean, there are some things, they are what they are. Your rent is your rent, your car payment's your car payment. But are there other ways that you are using your money that putting it out in front of your face is going to expose some things that could be altered, right? If there isn't anything there and you're like, holy cow, I have more expenses that I have no choice to, and I don't have the money to cover it, well, then you have some other decisions to make too about income. I mean, there's only two levers to pull, and it's expenses and income. And if you can't make it work, again, bad news, you might need to pick up a second job, or you may need to quit your job and find another industry to work in, or find another path to follow. And there's really no other option, right? There's no magic solution to this except for confront the hard news and figure out where are the opportunities to make a change. And it could be on either side. And it does suck. There's no doubt, but you can't get out of a situation if you don't fully understand the extent of it. It's easy to go, I never have any money. I just don't. I don't make enough money. And my rent just increased. And now I have to have a car payment. I don't have any money. What does that mean? Give me some numbers. Well, I don't know. I haven't really put it down on paper. I'm like, well, then how could you solve a problem when you don't even know what the problem is? I mean, you know the general sense of the problem, but you don't really have the math in front of you. So that's like ground zero for anybody. And I've had those conversations with people before, but it gets back to it's effort. It's effort. It's discipline. It's not going to be like, this is easy to solve and you're not going to sacrifice anything. Like, that's not reality. But once you realize that you have the power to change and you see the differences and you get yourself maybe not even completely out of a situation, but you can monitor and track like, oh, wow, my debt is way down now. Like, I am making lots of progress in the right direction. I'm saving now. I really have an emergency fund so I can sleep at night. Like, whatever those near-term goals are to move in the right direction, when you see progress, that's where you tap into to get more motivation. So it's a slow process, but you're going to feel really good about yourself when you start moving that needle. And that should keep you going. And celebrate those small wins, because they don't need to be paying off your house and saving for your kids' college and retiring early. Like, that is the big aspirational thing. And that's why I'm saying, like, you don't have to have those as your big goals out of the gate as a married couple. You need to do the things that are in front of you right now. So I hope that makes sense to you. And hopefully some folks will take my advice on that front because I know that is the answer.
Oh, well, you're absolutely right. That is the answer. And I couldn't agree more. I think you can't fix a problem you don't know the details of. And you will not know the details of your situation unless you face it head on and actually get to the numbers. I love numbers, don't lie. I totally agree. I mean, the numbers are there. You may not like the numbers, but
Right.
they are what they are. And at least when you know them, you can choose to make changes. And if you choose not to make changes, you don't like them enough, right? Like you're okay with how things are. But another thing is that first step that you shared is 100% free. It doesn't cost money to go pull your bills, look at your bank statements, review your credit card statements. It doesn't cost a thing. Yes, it will probably be incredibly anxious and anxiety provoking, but it's usually never as bad as you think, right? It's the fear that makes it so difficult to face the music. But once you do, you're already 10 steps ahead of the game.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. Well, you have been in your career for quite a long time, 30 years. That is commendable. Before I took City Girl Savings full time, I was in my 11th year in operations and compliance for a financial institution. And I could definitely see like a positive trajectory for my career in finances if I stayed. It wasn't meant to be, that's fine, but I saw it. Like I could see what could happen if I did stick that out. And so I'm curious for you, and I have a feeling I know the answer, but do you feel like the longevity in your career at your company has helped your financial situation and goals over the course of your time there?
Yeah, 100%. There is no doubt, I'll never deny that like my income continues to climb every year because I am in a high demand, well paid industry. Technology is where it's at. I've worked for big companies, global companies that make a heck of a lot of money. They pay their people well, they have great resources. And it was a big deal to me to continue to grow my income because, again, very money focused. And so there's no doubt that it has had a positive impact on my life. I am thankful every day for a particular professor I had in college who steered me towards this industry. I can't say that I love technology, right? Like that I love everything I do and it's all fascinating and my total passion. I'm not a techie per se. I do work in technology, more on the business side, but I know it well. I'm good at it, but I absolutely love the life it has given me. And that's what keeps me motivated every day. The life I've provided for myself, for my family, and I've stuck to my limits of what I was willing to do and not do as far as the amount of hours I'm willing to put in and the whole concept of climbing the ladder and where I've said, you know what, I'm good. This is enough. I know what the next level is, and I'm not signing up for late nights and more days on the road and demands that put incredible pressure on me where it's every day am I going to get fired because of whatever. Like I know my limits of like the environments I would not work in, the type of roles I am not interested in having. And when I know that and I'm comfortable in where I am and the type of work I do, it's all good. I mean, IT doesn't have to be the love of my life to stay motivated and keep doing it because I'm well respected. I work with good people. I am treated very well. I am not in a toxic environment. I have great bosses, and I've had multiple bosses over these years, as you can imagine. And as long as all of that is there, again, working with smart people, being treated well, doing something that's valuable, and getting well compensated for it, I'm good. So that's kind of been my mentality and what my expectations were for my career. So this professor way back when, and again, I mean, I thanked him as recently as this year because we're Facebook friends, say like what an impact he had on my entire life because of the career that I followed because of he told me this is where you want to go, Kara. So that's the piece that I've loved and I've been dedicated to and loyal to. But if someone goes, do you love your job and what you do every day? Do I love it? No. Have I ever loved it? No. that wouldn't be love. It's not my end all be all passion and purpose, but my purpose in my role as a provider for our family absolutely hits the mark or whatever. So,
Well, you said a few things that really stuck out to me, but one was this notion of as you continue growing the corporate ladder, your responsibilities expand and your hours technically need to expand as well. I was definitely experiencing that as I was growing. And I love that you kind of got yourself to a place where you had a cap because oftentimes more money or just anything could force people into situations that extend their limits and then they're unhappy and it's not worth the money or
it's so
whatever.
common. I mean, I witness it. It's not just something you read about that people describe. I have witnessed that happen so
Yeah.
many times. And I witnessed it early enough. And I remember something my dad said long ago, and he was at a university, he was in the education field. I remember he was always the assistant director of his department. And he was there for 35, 40 years that he worked for the university. And he was super good. Everybody loved him, crazy smart. And I said, are you going to be director someday? Like when I was little. And he goes, no. And I go, well, why wouldn't you want to be a director? And he goes, because I don't want to do what they have to do. But in my mind, I was this kid. I mean, I don't know if I was in middle school or whatever. And I just thought, oh, because I was like, after he got promoted to an assistant director, associate director or something. And he was like, you know how many meetings I have to go to? Do you know what extra paperwork I'd have to do? I am not interested in any of that. And I was like, huh. So like you have a choice. Like it's not just a automatic, but he like really stuck to like he liked his lifestyle. He didn't want pressure. He taught and did research. He didn't want to have more administrative duties, even though, yes, like you said, it always comes with more money. And so as much as I say money is important to me, like I have my limits. Like money is never going to be worth like sacrificing things that would negatively impact the rest of my life. Because the whole
Yes.
purpose of me doing the job I do is to make my life better. So why would I
Yes.
take on more in a job that I wasn't passionate about and make my life worse just for money? Like, no, I'm not like that money driven. Like money's not my number one priority. It's just I care about it. So
Right.
those kind of things and seeing that he would have never remembered that conversation, but I did. And seeing people in the workplace, in the corporate world, about the pressures they have and the people that move up fast and they're young and they have young families. And I kind of felt like kind of sorry for them because I understand that they are not getting good time at home. They have a lot of visibility and pressure from the highest of the high in the corporate ladder. Like there are limits.
Yeah.
And so thank goodness I knew like, this is it. I'm not interested in any more than this.
Good for you. That's inspiring.
But that's
in and of
also
itself.
helps with my longevity. Like I said, because if I would have, then I would have burnt out. I would have hated my job. I'd have been miserable and totally like quit. And
Yeah.
I never got to that point.
Good. You know your limits. Know your
Yeah.
limits. It's important. Another thing that I want to make sure we talk about because how freaking awesome, how much you've saved over a
The
decade. But
fun stuff. The not so
yeah,
happy stuff. Oh, yes.
travel, rewards. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, $120,000 over 12 years.
Now,
Like that.
there's a passion. You want to hear, well, what is your passion if it's not IT?
Yeah.
Hacking, right? Points and miles. No, I
Yes.
do love it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
share.
So
How'd you do it?
I've really been doing it for a very long time, but I actually started documenting it 12 years ago when I really dove deep into this world of points and miles, which is getting travel for nearly free through different loyalty programs like airlines and hotels and bank cards, bank reward programs. And really, I had done some travel hacking when I used to have to travel for work all the time in my 20s. And I was just earning points and miles through traditional travel. So you earned miles for how many miles you flew every week. And I was flying every single week for years, Monday through Friday. And so did that. And then the hotels I was staying at when I traveled, I'd get hotel points. And then I realized like, oh, and then you get enough of these and you get to go on a free trip. And so our first free travel hack was Hawaii, Oahu. We flew United and we stayed at Hilton Hawaiian Village. And this was back in like 1996 or something like that, forever ago. But I earned all of those not through credit cards like everybody does today, but it was through traditional travel. Because again, I was doing it every week for years. And it took a long time to get that many points, but I did it. And so my husband, I did it. And I was like, this is amazing. I mean, Hawaii was amazing, but not having to pay for it was like double amazing. So that's when I got a first taste. And then I did sign up for a Hilton American Express. It's my oldest credit card because I was so fired up about Hilton after that Hawaii trip. And I earned points after that. It was the only credit card we regularly used. And I was able to do a couple hotel hacks after that. But we were primarily like a debit card. We weren't a family at that point. It was just Mark and I. We did debit card all the time. Well, I guess, yeah, no, it was after the kids were born then, but we'd been doing it for such a long time. And our kids got older and we knew of some trips we wanted to take. I was like, how are we going to swing this? Because again, I don't want to mess up my financial goals, and travel's expensive.
Yeah.
And taking fun vacations are thousands of dollars, so that's going to impact your budget. And I had a friend at work at the time who was very much into points and miles through credit cards. And I talked to him some more about what he had been doing, and he pointed me to a lot of the blogs. I started researching and working on it in 2011 and asking for his advice, and really started getting more serious about like, okay, what are my goals? Where am I going next year? How many points do I need? And I started documenting everything. And then we started really doing it and using them in 2012. And ever since then, I mean, it's just, I kept reading and reading and learning and doing. I mean, you learn a lot by actually doing it.
Right.
And started building it up more and more, where I just got better and more savvy. And all those misconceptions out there, I threw out the window, thinking about how it hurts your credit score and how, oh, you're just inevitably going to end up in debt. And we were a debt-free family even then. I mean, we had car loans and stuff like that, but from a credit card perspective, we didn't have any debt. And I realized, no, we've got this. I mean, Mark and I kind of work as a team, and he pays the bills. So he's got to stay on top of certain things. And then I've got to stay on top of certain things. And we just went from there and have taken tons of trips. I have on my Instagram account a big spreadsheet that shows all the trips we have taken since 2012 and what their monetary value was of each trip and where we went and what hotel and airline we used. And yeah, we're at 120,000 now this year in the real value. So I would like book our flights in our room with points, and then I'd go back into the websites, and then I'd switch the toggle to cash to see what's the cash value of this. And then I'd write that number down on my spreadsheet. So I'm like, okay, we just saved $4,000 because we used points and miles. So that's like how I started getting really into it. Then I brought it into my Instagram account about a year after I started, because I only talked about really like personal finance topics, not credit cards. And then I mentioned one of the trips, and then people were like, tell me more, tell me more. This was like 4 years ago or so. And then people wanted more and more. I'm like, all right, I'll teach you guys how to do this. And then it exploded. That piece of my account really exploded because people were like, this is amazing. And they trusted me because they knew financially, like, okay, Kara's got her act together with her money. So I really broke down a lot of the, again, misconceptions, the myths about if you mess around with credit cards, you're probably going to be in debt. You probably don't have good money skills. And it's quite the opposite. The best travel hackers are like really good with their money because they're all over those bills. They never pay late fees, never have any interest. Every single month you pay off your credit cards in full and you'll win the game.
That's the trick, though. That's what people listening need to understand.
That's what it takes, always. And I weave that into my messages all the time. I have an online course, a free online course that's about an hour long that I posted out on YouTube. I say it like every couple slides. Like, I'm like, don't forget, you won't win this game if you're paying these bills late or you're not paying them off in full, because the interest rates on these cards are like 20 to who knows what percent. It's just robbery. So these aren't the cards that if you need 18 months of a 0% rate, these are not the cards. These are the ones that have like the worst interest rates. So you have to be on top of it. But it's created a lot of fun memories for our family because we've been able to do this.
Well, I definitely want to link to your course in the show notes. So please send me that so those listening can take it. But really quick, high level, can you explain what travel hacking
Oh,
is,
sure.
just in case someone doesn't understand?
So every airline and every hotel has a loyalty program. And there's also many banks that offer certain credit cards that have bank rewards programs that are geared towards redeeming points or rewards towards travel. So there's these different ways of accumulating points or types of points. Those are the three. You've got airlines, you've got bank rewards, and then you've got hotels. What you're able to do is by signing up for credit cards that are an American Airline credit card, a Southwest credit card, a Hilton Honors credit card, or like a Chase Sapphire Preferred card, which is one of those examples of bank rewards, you'll get a sign up bonus of a lot of points, thousands of points once you meet minimum spend within the first few months. That's a requirement before you receive the bonus. And then on an ongoing basis, you earn points for every dollar you spend with these credit cards. They have different earning rates depending on what you're spending your money on. One card may say, we earn higher in the gas category. Another card will say, we earn more when you use our card for groceries, whatever the case is. And that's where you start getting strategic and you have multiple cards and you go, okay, I want to use my card that earns the most points for this particular spend. And then you can accumulate these points a lot faster. So people do that. And then once you have a nice chunk of points, you can redeem these to get free hotel night stays, to get free flights, to get upgrades in your hotel rooms. You can get access to airport lounges with these credit cards. They have a lot of different perks. With the bank rewards point, the points you get from like a Chase Sapphire Preferred or a Capital One Venture, you can also redeem these points for like rental cars. So it can be travel even outside of a hotel or an airline. And again, get that aspect of your travel free too. And so a lot of people, you kind of piece these things together. So maybe you're like, I've got 60,000 Southwest Rapid Rewards, plus I have 200,000 Hilton Honors points. So I'm going to fly on Southwest to Florida and stay at the Hilton in Orlando for 4 nights when we do our Disney trip. And so all I have to do now is pay for my Disney tickets and I've got my hotel and my flights paid for. And so you strategically figure out how to earn and then how to redeem these points and get free travel. Some of these cards do have annual fees. The most common annual fee for these is like $95. There's some premier cards that have higher, but beyond those points, there are a lot of perks that come with these cards that have monetary value. So I had posted about this recently that just was kind of random because I had never really wanted it before, but you get several months of Instacart for free. Well, then when you have Instacart, what comes automatically with Instacart is a free subscription to Peacock for streaming. And I wanted to watch a game on Peacock. And so I was like, oh my gosh, let me sign up for the Instacart perk that's totally free. And again, that's a real subscription that has monetary value, but I didn't even want that. But I did want Peacock and I was willing to pay for Peacock. And now I don't have to because like there's these funny little things you can do with some of these credit cards because they have these great perks that have, again, real monetary value. So when you look at that $95 annual fee, if you can get some of that value back out of there with what it has, it turns out to be great. There's also the cards like Sapphire that have some good insurance with them for like rental cars. And so where you can waive certain parts of your insurance when you rent a car, where you would typically, like if you were someone who valued that and pays for that extra insurance, I don't know if it's liability insurance or what it is, that you can instead use your card to pay. And then you just save money by not having to buy that insurance when you got your rental car. And then you're like, okay, well, that has real monetary value in it. So you've got to look at those things too, because people get really turned off like, oh, but that one has an annual fee. And I'm like, well, yeah, the good cards do. And it has has a very good point, high earning rate in like dining. You get 3 points per dollar. That's like getting 3.75% back on every dollar you spend because those points. So you're like getting some of that back and the value of the points too. So it's more than, again, on that surface of looking at the annual fees. But these are the type of things, and you don't have to understand it all to get started by any means. I know I'm probably explaining complicated things at this point. And you're like, no thanks, sounds too crazy. It doesn't have to be that way. But the more you do it, the savvier you get. And then you get to the point like where I am, where like you just take advantage of so much because you know so much. But you can do baby steps with this. You can just sign up for one card and focus on that for your next trip. I tell everybody, start with a trip in mind. That's my message, or the one takeaway of all these things I'm rambling on about is that take it one step at a time, understand what your travel goal is, and then what brands need to be used to reach that travel goal. And then that drives what card you want to sign up for. So maybe you just say, all I want to do is get the flights paid for. I'm not going to mess with the hotel or the rental car or anything like that. You can make it as big or small as you want to make it, but I will warn you, you will get hooked.
Yeah.
Once you do it once, you're going to want more and you're going to want to go bigger and learn more. And then you become someone like me that just is obsessed with it because it's so fun. I mean, who does not love to travel? And then when you can travel for free, it's just, it's the ever.
But know your limitations, right? Like know your limits.
Of course. Because what you do is, so I'm glad you said that. Sorry, I should back up too. And this is probably more important than anything I just told you too, is that you can do this and remain on a budget. The whole point of this is not to look for ways to spend more money so you can earn more points. The point is that you need to use your card anytime someone takes credit cards without charging any kind of extra fee. I mean, even your cell phone bill can be paid with a credit card. So you've got a monthly cell phone bill with Sprint. You can do auto pay off your credit card. And with certain credit cards, I have a credit card that gives me 5 points per dollar on my cell phone bills. And then I'm obviously then paying off a credit card instead of directly paying Sprint. But it's still an expense I'm going to have either way. And it's still something that's in my budget. And as long as I stay on budget, it doesn't matter how I'm paying. It's that I have the money to pay it and I'm staying on budget. So that's the key thing with messing around with the point game and bringing credit cards into your life. The other thing too, that a lot of people I know do that are more hesitant or feel like I don't know that I have all the discipline is you can pay off your credit card whenever you want. That's the beauty of our world of like electronic payments. Like if you say, I just want to pay off the balance every single week because I don't want that money in my checking account because I don't trust myself to not end up spending it on something else. Pay off your credit card every week. Like you aren't limited to like, oh, I have to wait till the statement comes in the mail or my email. You can pay it off every single week and stay on top of it. So the money's out of your account, just like it would have been with a debit card. So that's like probably one of the most important tips and reminders, considering you have a very financially focused audience, and to keep yourself out of trouble when you're doing this. So.
Super, super helpful. I know you said you had that free course, so I will definitely link to that in the show notes. I feel like everything we talked about today was incredibly inspiring. It was so great to hear your perspective and just how you've gone through life and thought about money and dealt with money. Incredibly inspiring. Thank you so much for that. And before we wrap, can you share how and where listeners can connect with you?
Absolutely. So the best way to connect to me is Aunt.Cara. There's only one out there, although there's a lot of fake accounts. I am just Aunt.Cara on Instagram. I do have a TikTok and I do have a YouTube. I put my videos out on YouTube for like my courses, my free courses. I don't do much on TikTok at all. And then AuntCara.com is my website, but my email's on Instagram, and then I answer a heck of a lot of DMs all the time. So I would say best bet is Instagram.
Perfect. I will link to it in the show notes. Thank you again so much, Cara. Incredibly insightful. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Rhea.
Thank you so much for letting me be the money coach in your ear today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the City Girl Savings Podcast and you feel empowered and motivated to take the next step in the journey to your dream life. Remember, if someone like me, a millennial who loves to travel, new experiences, and iced coffees can live a life they love on a budget, you can too.